Okay. Good afternoon and welcome into the Senate Committee on Government Operations meeting of Friday, the 13th, 2026. Hopefully that won't create a problem for anyone. If one will be there's a term for that. Being
superstitious.
No, there's a term for being afraid of Friday the 13th. I don't know. I can't remember what it is. It's an actual thing. Wow. Anyway, welcome in, and we're joined today by a couple of folks from, well, at least one folk from the VSEA, and we did take a look at this a couple of weeks ago. This is a VSEA request that law enforcement officials who are, that's the third time that the helicopter's flown fairly close to the building. For those of you watching.
Or listening, because you can hear it loudly.
Anyway, if they become law enforcement trainers at the Vermont Police Academy in Pittsburgh, the request is that rather than move them to Group F, they be allowed to remain in Group C. Steve Howard is here. He's the executive director of the Vermont State Employees Association. And Tim Duggan is back as well from the Office of State Treasurer. Do you want to take the chair quickly, Steve, and just remind us about this?
Sure.
How many folks are involved? All that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Senator Beholtz.
I also would love to hear your sort of feedback, because we heard yesterday that this might apply in the face of federal law because of the forced retirement aspect of it. So I'm also just curious if you have anything to weigh in on.
Yes. So thank you, Senator, for that question. For the record, Steve Howard, I'm the executive director of the Vermont State Employees Association, and we represent the employees at the Vermont Police Academy in Pittsburgh. And so this came to our attention at a meeting that we had with them at the Academy. And at the time, the understanding that we had from the meeting was that the trainers at the Academy were required to be certified law enforcement officers. And we have subsequently learned that that is no longer the case. But we believe that for recruitment purposes, if a member of law enforcement who would be in Group C wanted to fill one of those roles, that they would be able to remain in Group C. Just because it would seem that we would want our trainers to be experienced law enforcement officers who are training the next generation of law enforcement officers. And so that is, the need has evolved a bit from one where the issue seemed to be that they couldn't fill the positions because nobody would go from C to F, to one where it would be an enhancement or an incentive for anybody who is in C to just stay in C.
Okay. And how many folks would be involved?
I believe at last count, and unfortunately Tom Avalor's not with us today, but I believe it's 6 positions.
It's a very small number.
Yeah, I don't want to 100% say it's absolutely 6, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard.
And are these folks retirement age, or some are and some aren't? Or
Some are, some aren't. But if they were to remain in Group C, they would, as a result of being in Group C, have to maintain their certification as law enforcement officers, even though the position may not require it.
Senator Beholtz.
And I guess my concern is the sort of question and that was raised around the job not actually being significant law enforcement duties and therefore potentially running afoul of federal law with forced retirement.
Well, if you're in Group C and you're still a certified law enforcement officer, you still have the retirement age. So if you stay in Group C, you maintain your certification, you're essentially a law enforcement officer that is doing training, that's in a training role. You would still, under what we're proposing, you would still have mandatory retirement age. I believe it's now 57.
No, I understand that you would still have a mandatory retirement age, but because you're not actually actively participating in law enforcement activities. You are not walking a beat. You may be illegal to have a horse for retirement age. Like that's I understand there is one.
Yeah, I think if you're still a certified law enforcement officer, I understand your question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But if we, I'm not sure actually. I won't say any more on that.
I appreciate that.
Senator Clayton.
So how have other states solved this problem?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have not explored other states.
Because this can't be unique to us. I mean, law enforcement officers are retired at a very young age. Given my age, I think that is very young age. And
Well, thank you. Because I'm
Yeah.
that age.
and that's true across the country, and they then go on to do either more law enforcement or other things. So I would appreciate you finding out for us what other states do about maintaining, because right now I'm understanding this is a barrier to them moving into a job they would like to do, but they can't really afford to do it if they give up their Group C status.
Mhm. Right, and I would love to do that, Senator, and respectfully, what I would suggest is, if the committee wanted to ask Ledge Council or JFO to reach out to the NCSL or to any of those organizations that might have that data. BSCA doesn't have that data. We wouldn't even know where to reach out to. But the folks who track that, national, probably do.
It might be CSG, because I know they have the
Yeah.
public safety.
They have the Justice,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they might be the best ones to
Yeah,
give
okay.
us the national
the
picture.
Justice Center.
I
Let's
think
find
that's
Yeah.
a good suggestion. I don't know if it's JFO or Ledge Council does that kind of stuff for you, but one of those groups.
Well,
wants.
Chris Root is already working on the pension issue, so I think if we ask Chris Root to find out, that would be great.
Well, we may get more information from our next witness too. Okay, well, I guess we'll just have to put it back up and see where it goes.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, Steve, thank you. Tim, do you want to join us?
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, Tim Duggan, Director of the Vermont Retirement Systems from the Office of the State Treasurer. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on this subject.
2 days in a row, pretty good.
I just sent over a report.
That's from Beth.
Yes, it's actually from a study committee that the legislature put together a few years ago, and that's where those federal law issues are spelled out. And this group was specifically looked at. If you look at page, oh gosh,
Okay. I don't see the micro.
That's right here.
page 6 of the report, there were, what that committee did was looked at all of the existing Group C positions and then looked at a few non-Group C positions where folks thought there may have been cause to include them in Group C. And one of those, as you see in the bullets at the top of page 6, is Vermont Criminal Justice Council employees. That's really the trainers who they were looking at the time. And the conclusion of that committee, while sensitive to the recruitment and retention issues raised, they believe that there's a couple of things. One, that the trainers did not meet the definition, the ADEA definition of law enforcement that could be subject to mandatory retirement age, and that the recruitment and retention issues raised are better addressed like sort of in a more holistic way with work, benefits, pay, sort of at the DHR level rather than focusing in on the retirement aspect of it. So this was a committee that folks created a few years ago, and that was their conclusion. That's what I wanted to bring back today. The definition of law enforcement as used under the ADA, the committee came to that definition. It's what's blocked out on page 4. An employee who is certified by the Criminal Justice Training Council and whose primary duties are investigation, apprehension, or detention of individuals suspected and convicted. That will also include someone who is sort of promoted up the ranks, right? But by the time you reach senior levels, you may not be walking the beat as it is, but as you proceed up the management chain, you can remain in subject to a mandatory retirement age. This, I think was felt as a little different when you transition over to a trainer. That's sort of different in kind. So that's what came. I remember this committee, I was staffing at the time, I was general counsel for there. So, remember doing this work, and I think it was a consensus decision of that committee at the time. I don't know that.
Senator Clark?
So Tim, thank you for bringing that. I know it was a pleasure that Becca served on this, Becca Fallon,
Yeah.
Not me.
before she went waltzing off to DC. I'm just curious, the committee created this, reviewed the legal definition and based on established a working definition to use in evaluating existing positions. That there didn't need to be legislative action on that. Was that already there? I mean,
Yeah,
it sounds like they tweaked it a bit.
Yeah, the definition comes from like case law. And,
Right,
you know,
but I
so
mean,
we
did they
review.
tweak it? Was it ever adopted, the working?
The working definition was the standard by
Was-
which the committee evaluated all
Right,
the
no, I
existing.
I appreciate that, but they didn't change it, so no,
No.
it's as is, as in. And it's interesting that they chose just this group, because they're also, of course, are other law enforcement, but I guess they're still considered law enforcement. They're with Fish and Wildlife and at DMV and stuff.
Those are all-
still considered active law enforcement.
And those were all evaluated. This
Yeah, no, I
section
know.
was just the review of the other positions that were not in and that folks had advanced for consideration for addition. So
So your suggestion is that if they do move, that they get that in some ways they get compensated in a comparable way that would mean they wouldn't lose some of the financial benefit of losing Group C. Is that what I hear you saying?
right, if the status quo, so if there is a desire to change the status quo, the committee's recommendation was to not look at the retirement
at the-
benefit
yeah,
in isolation and look at
Look at the
the
compensation.
totality of the
Right.
position and the comp and all that, and maybe there's a different way to address those recruitment and recruitment issues. That was the conclusion of the
That's
committee.
what I thought. And got it.
Again, just for the committee benefit, if you want to take a look at the composition of that group. Jill Krowinski, Becca Fallon, Jane Kitchell, Jeanette White, Mary Hooper, Sarah Copeland Hansis, Suzanne Young, and of course.
It's a pretty
Beth
hot
Pierce-
group.
Yeah, Beth Pierce was our treasurer at the time, so that is the conclusion they reached, and certainly be willing to hear more, but it would appear that they did their work and are suggesting that we may well just leave the situation alone.
And at the risk of contradicting the chair, the actual committee is listed on page 3.
Oh,
That was who this report was submitted to. The names of those on the committee
Oh, I made the same mistake.
are listed on page 3.
Page 3.
okay.
Oh, it does sort of look like that's the committee, because you don't usually send it to individuals.
Well, Jane Kitchell and Beth Pierce are both on.
Yeah.
Jeanette White was. John
And John
Gannon.
Gannon, it was a pretty fabulous group.
Active
Beth
in state
Stitchie.
government.
And Ingrid Jones should be on this, or at least I'm seeing her more often.
Does anyone else have questions for Tim? We are way ahead of schedule, so don't be afraid to ask a question if you have.
Well, is this committee ever afraid to ask a question?
No, I do sometimes try to push the agenda of to conform to the guidelines of time, but today that's not going to be an issue. Okay, Tim, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you coming back in and have a great weekend.
Need some tips.
We are going to be able to take a lengthy break. I, for some reason, thought this might be longer than I did. And one of the witnesses for our next item is, well, he hasn't even gone to the house yet, at 1:30. Chris Delia from the Vermont Bankers Association has to testify. So let me suggest that we wait until 2:00 to reconvene, which gives you plenty of time to
Finish lunch.
finish lunch, pack,
Excellent lunch.
whatever you feel like doing. And we'll take a look at S-196 again, which is an act relating to property tax sales when we come back. So Yes, Senator White.
Well, I just wanted to say we got an email from the Sergeant at Arms, and apparently the helicopters are part of a training flight,
Oh, well, that's
which makes me feel.
Yeah, that was,
reassuring.
yep,
Okay.
a little strange.
Thank you. And by the way, while we're still online, the answer to my initial question regarding the day and date, paraskevidecatria is the official term for fear of Friday the 13th. And both Senator White and Lynn
We were on.
Jakubowskis,
You are covering.
Yeah, teamwork.
Can you say it again?
paraskevidecatria.
Wow. Thank you for that piece of education.
Yeah, that's like a 20-word word, 20-letter word. Okay, we'll adjourn until 2 o'clock and be back then.